Sometimes, life taps us on the shoulder in the quietest way. There are moments when we pause without knowing why. A name crosses our mind, and suddenly that person calls. We turn a corner and stumble into a symbol we've seen 3 times this week. A song plays with lyrics that answer a question we never said out loud. Part of us shrugs and labels it coincidence. But beneath the intellectual chatter, beneath the logical explanations, something in the heart whispers, "Pay attention." These subtle alignments, what Carl Jung called synchronicities, are not accidents drifting in a meaningless void. They are like small ripples on the surface of a much deeper river, hinting at currents moving beneath. Think of life as a vast ocean of consciousness. You are not a separate drop trying to survive. You are part of the tide itself. And synchronicity, it is the tide's way of nudging you, gently, saying, "This way, slow down, remember what you already know." We don't observe these moments to gain control over them. Control is the language of fear. We observe them to participate in the conversation unfolding between our inner world and the greater field of intelligence all around us. When you begin to see synchronicity, really see it, something shifts. Suddenly, the world feels less random. The small events begin connecting like threads in a tapestry. Imagine watching a flock of birds move through the sky. They turn together without shouting commands, without debating direction. They respond to something deeper, a shared field. Our lives are not much different. Let's begin with those synchronicities that arrive when danger is near. You may know the feeling the car won't start on the day you plan to travel. The meeting gets delayed for no reason. A sudden heaviness settles in your chest. It's like the universe quietly places its hand on your back. At first, it can feel frustrating, like life is working against you. But when you look back, you often discover what you avoided: the accident you didn't see, the relationship that would have drained your soul, the opportunity that seemed golden but was hollow inside. Protective synchronicities pull you away not to punish you, but to preserve the deeper narrative of your evolution. Then there are the confirmations, the gentle applause from the unseen. You take a frightening step toward a dream, and suddenly, you begin seeing the same symbol, the same number, repeating, the same phrase spoken by strangers. It's almost like life leans close and whispers, "Keep going. This is the doorway." When you're lost in doubt, these moments arrive like lanterns in the dark. They don't shout, they glow. Some synchronicities speak in symbols rather than words. A feather on your path, on the day you're grieving. A hawk circling overhead when you're wrestling with courage. A dream so vivid it lingers for days. These symbols are like poetry, written by the collective unconscious. They speak to a part of you that existed long before language. To decode them, you must soften your logic and listen with your intuition, the quiet voice beneath all the noise. And sometimes, synchronicity becomes creation. Have you ever thought of someone you haven't seen in years, only to meet them the next morning? Have you wished for an item and found it waiting on a bench, as if placed there for you? These are not tricks of chance. Consciousness molds the clay of reality. Your thoughts are not passive, they are sculptors. When the mind, heart, and nervous system align, reality becomes malleable. You move from observing life to co-creating it. It is like tuning an instrument. When the vibration matches, the song appears. Perfect timing synchronicities are often the most beautiful. The moment you finally release a desperate grip on something, the right opportunity arrives effortlessly. Not early, not late, like a train that only appears when you stop pacing the platform. These moments teach the wisdom of surrender. You aren't meant to drag life forward with tension. You are meant to align with its current. Like a river, it flows best when you stop trying to swim upstream. What's fascinating is how these synchronicities intensify during spiritual growth. When a chapter of your life closes, the signs multiply. They cluster, like guideposts. They do this not because you are fragile, but because you are moving into unfamiliar terrain. In those moments, pay attention. Life becomes dense with metaphor. As your consciousness matures, your vibration shifts. Gratitude lifts you. Stillness opens you. Presence clears the fog. And suddenly, synchronicity becomes more frequent, not because the universe changed, but because you did. It's like cleaning the window. The scenery was always there. Now you can see it. Neuroscience even hints at this truth. Your brain receives more information than your conscious mind can process. Your intuition feels the shift before your thoughts catch up. Reality is not separate from you. It is an echo. When your inner world changes, your outer world rearranges to match the tone. Sometimes, synchronicities repeat the same symbol again and again, not to annoy you, but because the lesson is still unfolding, like a teacher patiently waiting for the student to notice the pattern. Life repeats itself until you integrate the wisdom. You may notice it in relationships, careers, fears. Patterns are mirrors. Allow me to be gentle but honest. Here, trying to force synchronicity is like tugging on the petals of a flower to make it bloom faster. These signs are invitations, not commands. You cannot make them come. You can only become receptive through curiosity, through openness, through quiet. As someone who has walked through long nights of confusion, I can tell you this: when you stop trying to bend reality with force, reality begins to respond with grace. Synchronicity is the language of alignment. It grows louder as you grow softer. Imagine your life as a great symphony. Every person you meet, every chance encounter, every unexpected delay is an instrument contributing to your theme. If you only listen to the drums, you will miss the violins. If you only focus on the melody, you will forget the harmony underneath. Synchronicity invites you to hear the entire orchestra. You don't have to chase signs. Live honestly. Hold loving intentions. Allow. Release. Rest. When your vibration becomes coherent, synchronicity becomes inevitable. Not because you are lucky, but because you are attuned. And one day, you will look back and realize that nothing was random. The difficult chapter shaped your compassion. The delay saved your peace. The stranger became your teacher. The symbol on the sidewalk was the turning point you couldn't see at the time. Life is not speaking to your mind. It is speaking through your heart. So breathe. Slow down. Notice. Let the river carry you. When you stop gripping the oars in fear, the current will guide you home. Synchronicity is not magic. It is the echo of your consciousness reflected in the universe itself. And every whisper, every symbol, every perfect moment is simply the cosmos reminding you you are already connected. Just listen. 1. Warning synchronicities. There are moments when life seems to slow you down in the most inconvenient ways. Maybe your car refuses to start on the morning of an important appointment. Maybe an uneasy feeling settles into your stomach just when you're about to sign your name on a dotted line. Maybe a sudden cancellation forces you to stay home when you were ready to rush out the door. On the surface, these interruptions look like irritation, like poor timing, like a universe indifferent to your plans. But if you listen not with logic, but with that quiet space beneath your ribs, you'll sense something else. I've walked through seasons when every step felt blocked. I used to push harder, clench my teeth, tighten my chest, and insist that my will alone would get me where I intended to go. Each time, I found myself tangled in deeper frustration, as if every door I forced shut behind me allowed another one to collapse ahead. Back then, I didn't understand. I thought resistance was a sign of weakness. But life has a funny way of teaching gently at first, then loudly if we ignore the lesson. Warning synchronicities are life's gentle knocks on the door before the storm arrives. They are small glitches in the fabric of your plans that invite you to pause, breathe, and reassess the path you're walking. They are not punishments. They are invitations to look inward. Think of your soul like a compass, always pointing toward your true north. When you drift too far off that direction, the needle doesn't shout. It trembles softly, vibrating your awareness. A forgotten key, a sudden headache, a strange heaviness that tells you, not this way. These synchronicities are more accurate than the most expensive GPS because they are calibrated to your inner truth. You see, there are choices that look promising on paper: a new job with more money, a relationship that seems charming from the outside, a business deal that everyone tells you is smart. But beneath all the decoration, there may lie unseen costs: distraction, emptiness, betrayal of self. The universe sees the ripple long before you see the pebble. When it senses you leaning toward a timeline thick with unnecessary pain, it intervenes, not with thunder or divine speeches, but with small stumbles you can feel if you're willing to soften. Warning synchronicities often appear in clusters. Maybe first it's a forgotten wallet, then a missed bus, then an internal voice whispering that something is off. When these align, pay attention. Patterns are not accidents. They are language. The universe speaks through repetition because repetition is how humans finally listen. You might wonder, why doesn't life speak more clearly? Why the subtle hints instead of clear warnings? The truth is, clarity without choice is control, and control steals growth. The universe respects your freedom more than your comfort. It wants you to choose alignment, not out of fear, but through awareness. When you ignore these warning signs, the synchronicities often grow louder. What begins as discomfort can become chaos. A minor delay becomes an emotional breakdown. A faint feeling becomes a conflict that erupts out of nowhere. The lesson doesn't change. Only the volume does. And if you're honest, you've felt this before. We all have. Life always tries to whisper before it ever has to roar. I remember a time in my own journey when everything seemed to crumble at once. Meetings fell apart. Projects collapsed. Even my body resisted, shutting down with exhaustion. I fought it tooth and nail. I cursed timing. I blamed the world. Only later did I realize that had I succeeded in pushing forward, I would have locked myself into commitments that would have drained the remaining color from my days. What felt like betrayal from life turned out to be protection. The ego hates delay. It measures success by pace. But the soul knows timing. It measures truth by resonance. Warning synchronicities force you to slow down long enough to differentiate between the two. There are 3 subtle sensations you can look for. First, there is tightness. Your chest narrows. Your breathing shortens, even if nothing bad has happened yet. Your body speaks through tension. The body is the oldest prophet we have. It remembers things your mind hasn't seen. Second, there is dissonance. Something feels off. A conversation leaves you hollow. A place makes your bones cold. Even if the air is warm, your intuition is wired to detect frequencies, not appearances. When reality around you feels mismatched with your inner tone, that is, synchronicity, tapping your shoulder. And third, there is interruption. Life blocks your access. Doors close. Technology fails. People forget. Plan désintégrate. It's easy to shake your fist toward the sky when this happens. But pause. Ask yourself, what would happen if everything today had gone smoothly? Where would it have led me tomorrow? Often, the answer is painful. Warning synchronicities also show up in relationships. Maybe every attempt to meet someone keeps falling apart. Maybe conversations never fully align. Maybe your shared schedules are always mismatched. You can force it, and many do. But forcing a connection that organically resists is like tying a knot in a river. It only binds your own heart faster. Sometimes, you don't lose the relationship. You lose yourself, and the universe intervenes. Jobs can work the same way. You're tempted by the salary, the recognition, the security, but the offering smells slightly metallic, like something artificial. Then suddenly, emails go unanswered. Your interview gets rescheduled, or you feel a strange tightness when you imagine sitting at that desk every day. That is your inner knowing, whispering through the cracks. Be careful. Warning: synchronicities don't demand logic. They require honesty. To work with them, you must soften your plans, loosen your grip. Stop treating life like a machine you must operate perfectly, and start seeing it as a dance you're learning to feel. Some of the greatest pains humans endure come from forcing outcomes that the heart quietly warned against. There's a metaphor I hold close. Imagine you're hiking, and the path becomes muddy and difficult. You slip once, twice. Branches snap beneath your feet. The air grows thick. You can push through, but each step costs energy, attention, peace. Just ahead, hidden by the trees, another path runs parallel, dry, open, sunlit, but you'll only see it if you pause long enough to look. Warning: synchronicities are those slips, those branches, those heavy breaths. They're not obstacles to shame you. They are pauses to turn you. People often ask, but what if I'm mistaken? What if I misread the signs? You won't ruin your destiny by choosing slowly, but you can bruise your spirit by rushing blindly. When in doubt, return to the body, return to breath, return to simplicity. The path that feels spacious, no matter how uncertain, is closer to truth than the path carved by fear. Over time, you'll notice something tender. Warning: synchronicities only activate when the stakes are meaningful. The universe doesn't interfere with small detours. It intervenes when the choice in front of you could fracture your inner alignment. That is love in its quietest form. Eventually, you will look back and whisper, "I'm glad the car didn't start that day." You'll realize you were saved by inconvenience. And when that understanding dawns in your bones, you'll stop fighting every delay. You'll begin to trust pauses. You'll lean into the unknown with softer shoulders, because you'll understand this simple, profound truth. Not every closed door is rejection. Some are protection. And life, in its deep intelligence, that is always trying to keep you from losing yourself on a path never meant to carry your name. When you learn to listen to these subtle warnings, your life begins to unfold with fewer scars, fewer regrets, and a deeper sense of companionship with the mystery guiding you. And you'll realize you were never walking alone. 2. Confirmation synchronicities. There comes a point on the journey when doubt settles on the chest like a quiet weight. You've made a decision that your soul whispered toward, but the mind begins its familiar interrogation. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm foolish? What if this path leads nowhere? It's in those tender moments when faith wavers like a candle in the wind that confirmation synchronicities arrive. They appear not as grand fireworks, but as subtle harmonies layered into the everyday, like invisible applause echoing behind the curtain of reality. You may be thinking about a choice you just made, perhaps leaving a job that drained your spirit, or stepping into a relationship that feels strangely alive, and suddenly you see a number repeating again and again: 111. 220. 360. You hear a stranger tell their friend, "Trust yourself." A bird lands near your feet and just stares, not startled, as if delivering a message it can't speak aloud. That is life's way of touching your shoulder gently and saying, "Yes, keep going." These synchronicities feel different from mere chance. They don't spark fear. They open the heart. They don't rush you. They relax your breath. They carry a warmth that washes over the body like sunlight breaking through a thick morning fog. And if you've ever felt one, you know exactly what I mean. A quiet certainty blooms inside you, almost like remembering something you once knew but forgot along the way. You see, confirmation synchronicities show up when your external steps align with your internal truth. The world outside begins to mirror the world within. Your thoughts become reflected in your surroundings, not through magic tricks or superstition, but through resonance. When two tuning forks vibrate at the same frequency, one sets the other. humming without touch. Your soul is that vibration. The universe is the instrument that hums in response. When you take a courageous step toward growth, especially one, the ego does not approve of you. Enter a wilderness. The old map no longer fits, and the new map has not formed. It's uncomfortable. It's disorienting. That's when the universe tends to send its quiet signals. A sentence in a book you randomly open. A color that keeps appearing around you. A friend calling with the exact words you needed to hear. These are breadcrumbs along the forest path. Some people dismiss these moments out of habit. They shrug and say, just coincidence. But deep down, beneath the logic, something inside them softens. Because intuition speaks the language of symbols, and confirmation synchronicities are intuition's punctuation marks. These signs often show up when you are on the edge of giving up. Maybe you've been working tirelessly toward a dream, and exhaustion begins to whisper lies. You're not enough. It's too late. Nobody cares. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, someone says, "You inspire me," or a message arrives telling you that your work mattered to someone you've never met. The timing is so perfect it almost hurts. Like someone heard the silent plea inside you and responded. This is the universe's compassion. Not loud, not dramatic, just perfectly timed. One thing that's important to understand is that confirmation synchronicities rarely make decisions for you. They don't drag you down a path. They simply illuminate what you already know. They reinforce authenticity. They amplify what feels aligned. You still have to choose. And you still have to walk. But the path becomes lit with fireflies instead of darkness. Let's talk about the feeling of them. The feeling is unmistakable. It's not adrenaline or excitement that spikes and crashes. It's a calm wave of clarity. The body relaxes. The breath deepens. The eyes widen. Not in fear, but in wonder. It's like hearing your name spoken by someone who truly knows you. That sensation is the sign. Often, these synchronicities involve eyes, the eyes of strangers, glancing at you with recognition, though you've never met. It's not romantic or dramatic. It's archetypal. The universe uses the human gaze to reflect the truth back at us. Sometimes, you'll overhear a phrase that answers the exact question you didn't dare say aloud. You'll be debating whether to end something that no longer nourishes you. And suddenly, a child runs past, shouting, "Let it go." The timing feels intentional. You're not imagining it. You're remembering. The beautiful thing about confirmation synchronicities is that they don't only appear during leaps of faith. They also arrive during small steps when you set a boundary, when you speak honestly, when you finally rest without guilt. They celebrate not only achievement, but alignment. They show up when you choose healing over habit. When you follow your authentic path, life becomes cooperative. Doors open gracefully. People appear that carry exactly the advice or opportunity you needed. It's not that the world bends to your will. It's that you are finally walking in rhythm with a larger pulse, like dancing with someone who knows the music better than you do. What's fascinating is how deeply personal these signs can be. For one person, a butterfly landing on their hand might symbolize transformation because of childhood meaning. For another, hearing a certain song might unlock courage because of who sang it. The universe doesn't speak in generic messages. It speaks in intimate symbols tailored to your unconscious. That's why these moments feel like they're meant only for you. Because they are. And let's be honest, we need these reminders. We are creatures prone to self-doubt. The ego uses fear like a leash, keeping us small, safe, stagnant. But the soul knows expansion. It knows the difference between comfort and growth. Confirmation synchronicities are like small celebrations thrown by the universe whenever you break an invisible chain. They say, that direction, that feeling, that courage. Sometimes, people ask, but what if I imagine these signs? What if I read too much into them? The truth is simple. If the result of a sign is peace, clarity, and alignment, then imagination is not the enemy, but confirmation synchronicities bring calm, not attachment. They invite, not pressure. They don't demand control. They encourage trust. Think of them like rain tapping on a window while you're lost in thought. The tap doesn't force you outside. It reminds you that there is more beyond your room. The more you align with your authentic self, the clearer these signs become. They shift from whispers to melodies. You begin to anticipate them, not with desperation, but with gentle curiosity. Life becomes a dialogue. You ask questions with your actions, and reality responds with symbols. In time, you'll realize something almost tender. The universe has been cheering for you since the beginning. Every time you followed intuition instead of fear, every time you chose compassion instead of bitterness, a ripple moved through the field around you, and the field responded. Confirmation synchronicities are echoes of your soul's voice, echoes of alignment, echoes of truth. Eventually, the signs become so clear that you no longer need them as often. You begin to feel guidance directly in the body, like gravity pulling you toward the right horizon. At this stage, synchronicities don't disappear. They become internalized. You carry the compass inside you. And on days when doubt returns, as it always will, confirmation, synchronicities appear once more, not to prove anything, but to remind you that you are in conversation with a living, breathing universe. So when the numbers repeat, when the strangers speak truth without knowing, when the eyes hold kindness you didn't expect, pause, feel, allow, smile if you can, because in that moment, you are being applauded by something you cannot see but can absolutely feel. And the message, whispered through the fabric of reality itself, is always the same. Keep going. 3. Symbolic messages. There is a quiet truth woven through human history, long before we spoke in structured language. Long before alphabets and laws and doctrine, we understood the world through symbols. Fire wasn't merely fire. Water didn't simply quench thirst. A certain bird flying overhead wasn't just part of the landscape. It carried meaning. Symbolism is the earliest tongue of the soul, a way consciousness communicates when words are too small, too literal, too fragile to hold what needs to be said. In modern life, we've forgotten this. We've traded instinct for logic, intuition for calculation. Yet symbols still arrive, again and again, tapping on the window of our awareness like an old friend who refuses to be ignored. They show up in repeating animals, vivid dreams, recurring numbers, like 1111, glowing on clocks and receipts. Strange colors that haunt the corner of your vision. To the rational mind, these things are random, but the deepest part of us knows better. They are not decoration, they are code. They are invitations. Imagine walking through your day, carrying a quiet question in your heart. You're unsure of a decision, or wrestling with a feeling you can't quite name. Suddenly, you see a butterfly perched in a place it should never be in winter. Later, you dream of emerging from a cocoon. The next day, you find a painting of a butterfly while waiting in line somewhere. If you ignore these moments, life will not punish you. But if you pay attention, you'll feel something unlock. It's like finding breadcrumbs leading through a shadowed forest. Symbolic synchronicities often arrive when the unconscious is ready to speak. We don't always know what we're healing. Sometimes, we don't know. We are hurting. A repeated animal, a recurring number, a color that seems to follow you. These are signals that the psyche is trying to surface something buried. Symbols bypass the mind and go straight to the heart. That's why they feel familiar even when you can't explain them. Numbers like 1111, 222, or 444 are common examples. They are not magical in themselves. They are reflections. When you see them repeatedly, your attention stops wandering. You become present. And presence is where truth lives. It's less about the number and more about the pause, the way reality gathers itself around a moment to whisper, "Look here, feel this." Dreams are another channel of symbolic messaging. They are the subconscious, unbuttoned, relaxed, uncensored. In dreams, the wall between the seen and the unseen thins. Colors are brighter. Emotions are louder. Things you've been avoiding in waking life step forward like ancient characters on a stage. A dream of overflowing water might reveal emotions you've suppressed. A dream of losing your voice might speak to boundaries unspoken. When you wake, the images linger because symbols are sticky. They stay until they're understood. Animals are powerful symbols too. Humans have read meaning in them for thousands of years. A wolf might appear when you're learning to trust your instincts. A deer when gentleness is needed. A raven when transformation is near. Sometimes these animals show up physically, sometimes digitally, sometimes in art. It's the repetition that matters. The conscious mind sees coincidence, but the intuitive mind sees choreography. Life is dancing with you. Colors are far more than aesthetics. Red might enter your world when you're learning courage or anger. Blue might surround you when it's time for surrender. Green when healing is unfolding beneath the surface. When a color becomes unusually noticeable, it is often connected to a chakra, a memory, or a developmental stage of the soul. The world paints around you when you're changing inside. The beauty of symbolic synchronicities is how personal they are. For one person, seeing a black cat is a warning. For another, it's a blessing. Context matters. History matters. Culture matters. Your heart is the key that interprets the lock. That's why no book can perfectly tell you what a symbol means. Symbols are mirrors, not instructions. A symbol's meaning often reveals itself slowly. The first time you see it, you may shrug. The second time, you pose. The fifth time, it feels like a nudge. The 10th time, you can no longer deny the pattern. This repetition is intentional. The universe isn't rushing you. It waits until the soil of your awareness is soft enough to plant seeds. Sometimes symbolic synchronicities come as warnings, but not in the fearful sense. They may show up before a major life change or a transition in identity. A cracked mirror might appear when it's time to shed an old persona. Repeating imagery of bridges might surface when you're crossing an inner threshold. These symbols don't predict the future. They reveal the present more honestly than your mind often allows. Symbolic synchronicities also appear when we are avoiding something essential. If your waking life refuses to slow down, your dreams might scream. If your heart refuses to speak, symbols will find you in the folds of ordinary life. It's not drama, it's compassion. To truly receive symbolic messages, one must practice a very honest kind of listening. It's not about superstition. It's not about paranoia. It's about curiosity. When a symbol appears, ask gently, "What emotion was I feeling just before I saw this? What situation is this appearing around? What does this remind me of?" Answers won't always arrive immediately. Often, they bloom slowly, like a flower reluctant to open too early. Journaling can help. Write down symbols you encounter, even if they seem insignificant. Over weeks, patterns emerge. Perhaps birds appear whenever you betray your boundaries. Maybe the color yellow shows up whenever you're on the brink of creative expansion. Patterns are messages you can only see from altitude. And here's a truth. Softer than breath, symbolic synchronicities increase when you're ready to evolve. Not when you declare it, not when you force it, but when your nervous system finally unclenches. Healing is not linear. It curls like smoke. Symbols help us navigate its shape. As you grow, you'll notice that symbolic synchronicities become less dramatic. They shift from flashing neon signs to quiet confirmations. This is not because they've abandoned you. It's because you've learned to read life without shouting. The language becomes internal. Your intuition becomes fluent. When symbols arrive, do not clutch them tightly. Do not obsess. Simply acknowledge. Let them breathe. Let them move. When you force meaning, you drown in interpretation. When you allow meaning, you swim. Symbols are not meant to control your choices. They are meant to illuminate your awareness. In darker seasons, symbolic synchronicities can feel like lifelines. They remind you that something out there, or perhaps in there, knows you're still on the map. A single feather on the ground during grief can feel like a hand on the back. A dream of light when the night is longest can feel like a promise. These symbols do not solve your pain, but they soften its edges. Eventually, you begin to understand that symbols are not messages from somewhere else. They are reflections of the wisdom already resting inside you. The world is not speaking to you. It is speaking as you. Every symbol is an echo. So when an animal crosses your path twice in 1 week, when the same number flickers everywhere you turn, when a dream refuses to fade, pause, sit quietly. Let the symbol show you what words cannot. Healing often begins with a single image. And remember, these symbols do not demand that you believe. They simply invite you to notice. The soul knows how to read what the mind has forgotten. You don't have to decode every sign. You don't have to chase meaning. Just stay present. Stay open. Trust the quiet. Because when symbolic synchronicities appear, they are not telling you something new. They are reminding you of something ancient, something tender, something true, something your soul has known all along. 4. Creative synchronicities. There are moments when reality seems to lean toward you, when a simple thought gently ripples outward, and somehow, the world responds. You think about someone you haven't spoken to in years, and suddenly they walk into the cafe you're sitting in. You imagine an object you've been needing, a specific book, a tool, a strange little item you can't even describe, and the next day, someone gifts it to you, or you find it resting in a place you would never expect. To the skeptical mind, this is chance, but the deeper mind, the one that has walked the long corridors of silence and intuition, knows better. These are creative synchronicities. Life is not just happening around you, it is happening through you. Our culture loves to teach that we are observers, spectators in a universe already scripted. But creative synchronicities whisper a different truth. Consciousness is not a passive witness. It shapes the clay of experience. It bends probability. It invites form to follow intention. When the heart and mind align, reality listens. You see, every thought carries a frequency, not in a poetic metaphysical sense, but in a deeply practical way. Your nervous system, your heartbeat, the electrical patterns in your brain, all of it resonates outward into the invisible architecture of existence. When those patterns are chaotic, filled with fear, doubt, impatience, the field around you becomes cloudy, like fogged glass. But when you become clear inside, something astonishing happens. The fog lifts, the field organizes, the outer world begins to rearrange itself around your inner state, like iron filings snapping into alignment around a magnet. Creative synchronicities often arrive when you're not pushing maybes. They appear when the grasping stops, when the hand unclenches. It's like the universe waits for you to stop yanking on the branches. And only when you step back, the fruit falls on its own. There's a reason for that. Creativity doesn't thrive in tension. It thrives in coherence. When your mind, heart, and emotion hum the same note, reality carries the tune. You may remember moments when something you wanted showed up with perfect timing. Just as you found the courage to let go, that's because the letting go wasn't giving up. It was removing resistance. Desire without resistance becomes magnetism. And magnetism is the pulse of manifestation. I once met someone who spent weeks obsessing over finding a job. They called, emailed, paced floors late at night. Nothing happened. One afternoon, exhausted, they sat quietly by a river and simply admitted, "I'm tired of forcing the crease." In that surrender, their breath softened. When they returned home, a voicemail waited an offer that had been delayed, now suddenly released. Their inner storm had kept the gate closed. Their stillness opened it. This is the heart of creative synchronicity. Intention sets the destination, but surrender determines the timing. Often, people confuse manifestation with control. They think if they concentrate hard enough, clench their jaw tight enough, they can bend the world by brute force. But force belongs to the ego. Creation belongs to the soul. It's not about commanding reality, it's about harmonizing with it. Think of a sculptor. They don't scream at the stone, they listen to it. They remove everything that isn't the form. Creative synchronicities are the same. They show you what to remove internally: fear, doubt, desperation. Sometimes, these synchronicities appear before you consciously desire something. That's because your subconscious knows earlier than you do. You may find a course, a book, or an idea appearing repeatedly before the desire even forms in your conscious mind. This is life saying, "I've already prepared the path. Just notice, there's something mysterious." 2. About how the universe organizes timing. A chain of events that began weeks, months, even years earlier, can culminate in your present need. It's as if your present intention travels backward through time, rearranging old movements to deliver the outcome you are just now ready to receive. Science struggles with this idea, yet quantum experiments hint at retrocausality. But you don't need a lab to know the feeling sometimes. The answer arrives before you even knew the question existed. Creative synchronicities also show us the crucial difference between imagination and fantasy. Fantasy is scattered, cloudy, unfocused desire. Imagination, when paired with belief, becomes blueprint. When you can feel a future experience in your nervous system, reality begins calibrating itself around that feeling. You can test this. Think of a memory that brings deep joy. Notice how your body warms, your breath softens, your chest expands. Now think of something you fear. Feel how the body contracts. Creation is simply the universe responding to your internal expansions and contractions. When people ask me why their manifestations fail, the answer is almost always the same. They try to create from contraction. They ask while holding fear. They visualize while doubting. They push while bracing. It's like trying to paint while someone shakes your shoulder. Creative synchronicities are born when your inner landscape is steady, when you trust the unseen long enough for the scene to arrive. And trust is not passive. It's active receptivity. It's leaning into life with open palms. When you trust, you become aware of opportunities others overlook. You feel nudged to take a different street. You sense the right moment to speak. Creation requires participation. But participation without anxiety. Another aspect of creative synchronicities is connection. Have you ever thought of a friend you haven't heard from in ages? And they message you within hours. It's not random. Human beings are entangled, not metaphorically, quantumly. We share emotional fingerprints with those who have shaped us. When you think of someone intensely, your nervous system sends signals into the field, like ripples on a lake. If they are tuned to your frequency, their attention is pulled. We underestimate how interconnected we are. We think in terms of isolation, but life is relational. Creative synchronicity reveals what mystics and physicists both understand: consciousness is a network, not a node. Now, let's talk about clarity. When your desire is muddy, the universe sends muddy results. When you change your mind every hour, the field around you has to keep reformatting. But when your inner signal becomes consistent, gentle, steady, not desperate, the outer world stops glitching. Perfect timing becomes common. Right place, right time becomes normal. Opportunities feel natural instead of miraculous. But clarity is not intensity. It's simplicity. It's knowing what you want because you've stopped listening to the voices that tell you who to be. Creative synchronicity is strongest when the desire comes from authenticity, not ego, not comparison. The universe responds to alignment, not performance. You might notice that creative synchronicities increase when you're joyful for no reason. That's because joy means you've removed conditions. You no longer wait for the external to permit your internal. When you become the feeling first, life reflects it back. And here's the quiet part. Most people miss creative synchronicity is not about getting things, it's about becoming someone. Every manifestation is a mirror, showing you who you are willing to be. The object or event is just a delivery vehicle. The growth is the point. Eventually, you'll find that you don't need to control outcomes. You simply tune yourself, like a radio, seeking a clear station. When the static fades, the song plays. Creation is not effort, it is resonance. So when you think of someone and they appear, when you desire something gently and it arrives, when your inner world spills into the outer stop, feel it, let the wonder settle. Not because it's rare, but because noticing strengthens the dialogue. Over time, you will realize that you are not manifesting objects. You are manifesting states of being. Love, safety, expansion, purpose. The outer world shapes itself around those states like clay around a mold. And when creative synchronicities become normal, you'll stop asking, "How do I make this happen?" Instead, you'll ask, "Who must I become for this to be natural?" The answer is always the same. Become clear. Become present. Become peaceful. Become honest. When you do, life doesn't bow to you. It dances with you. And in that dance, you'll discover something quietly extraordinary. Reality has been waiting for you the whole time, not to control it, but to remember that you're part of its creation. 5. Perfect timing synchronicities. There are seasons in life when everything feels out of sync. You reach for opportunities that seem to slip through your fingers like water. You meet someone who could have been important, just not now. Doors close without explanation. Plan dissolve. And in those moments, it's easy to believe life is ignoring you. Or worse, working against you. But with time, a wiser truth settles. In the universe never says no. It only says not yet. Perfect timing. Synchronicities are some of the most tender forms of guidance we receive. They reveal themselves quietly, without spectacle, and often only in hindsight. They arrive when the heart is finally soft enough to receive, when the mind has stopped wrestling, when the nervous system is no longer bracing. We imagine we choose timing, but timing also chooses us. Think of the stranger you meet on a random morning, someone whose conversation changes the course of your life. Think of the job that didn't appear when you desperately needed it, but came when you had learned enough humility and skill to thrive within it. Think of the relationship that didn't blossom in your impatient youth, but bloomed in the quiet maturity of your 30s or 40s. These are not coincidences, they are alignments. If something meaningful arrives too early, we turn away from it. We're not ready to see its value. We may not have built the emotional muscle to hold it. Imagine handing a child the keys to a car. The machine isn't evil, the timing is wrong. The same is true for love. Purpose. Opportunity. When arrived too soon, blessing becomes burden. If something arrives too late, the opportunity carries no fire. We've already moved on, or our heart has shifted its direction. Timing isn't about convenience, it's about readiness. Perfect timing. Synchronicities feel like puzzle pieces clicking into place. You meet someone who knows exactly the person you were trying to find. You overhear a conversation that answers a question you've been quietly drowning under. You're delayed just long enough to encounter the right hallway, the right moment. the right intersection of destiny and awareness. And then it hits you with a softness that almost feels like déjà vu. This was arranged. What many people don't realize is that timing synchronicities don't just happen outside of us, they respond to the rhythm inside us. When you're anxious, life becomes tangled. You rush, you panic, you grasp. Doors feel locked. People feel far away. Nothing quite lands. But when you exhale into presence, synchronicity begins to thread itself through your days like gold stitching. You bump into friends at just the right moment. You find exactly what you need as you surrender the neediness of wanting. Perfect timing is born from inner timing. There's a story the mystics love to share. A student asks the teacher, "How long will it take me to reach peace?" The master replies, 10 years. The student protests, "But if I work twice as hard," the master smiles. Then 20 years. The harder you chase timing, the further it retreats. Perfect timing synchronicities don't respond to pressure. They respond to coherence. Coherence is when your intentions, emotions, and actions line up into one clean signal. Not scattered, not frantic, clear, calm, edged with trust. When you reach that state not perfectly, but sincerely, life begins to deliver what was already circling at the edges of your awareness. You've likely felt this before. You struggled for months to find a solution to a problem. You wrestled, you strategized, you lost sleep. And then one day, after walking away, after letting go, the answer landed effortlessly in your lap. Not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped strangling the outcome. Timing synchronicities are teachers. They teach patience, not the passive, resentful kind, but the mature, spacious kind. They teach humility, not the bending of the spine, but the softening of ego's grip. They teach trust, not blind belief, but an embodied knowing that life unfolds in layers. We cannot rush. Sometimes, timing, synchronicities reveal the truth of relationships. Have you ever met the right person at the wrong time? You know the connection is real, but circumstances are misaligned. Perhaps two people still carry wounds that would bleed all over each other. Perhaps each still needs to stand alone before standing together. When something matters deeply, timing is not a barrier. It is a guardian. If you force timing, and you risk burning the very connection you hope to nurture. When the time is right, paths cross easily. Phone calls return. Plan flow. There is no grinding friction. The universe opens corridors you previously slammed your shoulder against. Perfect timing, synchronicities often feel like a sigh of relief. They arrive without drama. If you feel desperate, strained, or panicked, it might not be time. When timing is right, you don't have to convince life to cooperate. Now, let's speak about the hidden architecture behind these synchronicities. Life is constantly arranging itself around your readiness. Every delay is preparation. Every rejection is redirection. Every silence is seasoning. You are not being punished. You are being shaped. The universe is more interested in who you become than what you receive. Many people misunderstand this and declare, if it were meant to be, it would be easy. But sometimes, the preparation is the difficulty. The storm sculpts the tree. The drought builds the root. The heartbreak cracks the shell. Perfect timing is not about ease. It's about ripeness. Consider fruit. Pick it too soon, and it's bitter. Wait too long, and it rots. Pick it at the perfect moment, and it nourishes you. Every human experience is fruit. Wisdom is knowing when to bite. Timing synchronicities become more common when you slow down enough to notice them. In a rushed life, everything is noise. But when you breathe, when you listen, when you allow space between thought and reaction, synchronicity begins to speak in patterns. You'll find yourself saying, "That's strange," or "I was just thinking about that," or "What are the odds?" That's the language. And if you follow it not obsessively, But curiously, you'll feel guided. We often assume that our deepest desires are entirely our own. But what if some of them are summons? What if purpose calls you through timing synchronicities, so you can walk into the life your unlived gifts already know? When timing aligns, you'll feel it in your body. Your shoulders drop, your breath expands, your voice steadies, the yes rises from your bones, not your brain. That sensation is alignment. It is the nervous system whispering, "We are safe enough for this." And here is a secret few speak out loud. Life never arrives early because early arrival breeds fear. If you receive something before you're ready to hold it, you will spend every day afraid of losing it. Perfect timing is compassionate because it delivers only what you can keep. Eventually, you begin to trust delays. You stop calling them failures. You start seeing them as choreography. You learn to say, "If not this, something aligned." You learn to ask, "What is this pause protecting me from?" You learn to feel timing instead of forcing outcomes. When you live this way, frustration softens into curiosity. Impatience melts into wonder. You stop shoving doors and start waiting for the one that opens when you touch it lightly. And when timing synchronicities arrive, when you meet the right person, when you step into the right room, when you hear the right sentence at the right second, you'll feel a quiet recognition. Not excitement. Recognition. It will feel like coming home to something you've never seen but always carried. So when life slows you down, breathe. When doors close, bow. When plans dissolve, soften. You are not being denied, you are being aligned. Because perfect timing isn't luck. It's love disguised as delay. 6. When synchronicities increase. There are certain seasons in life when the air feels different. Colors seem more vivid. Conversations strike deeper. Patterns appear where before there was only noise. These are the transitional thresholds, the moments when one version of you is quietly dissolving, and another is waiting just behind the curtain. During these times, synchronicities don't merely trickle, they surge. They bloom like signs on the side of a long and unfamiliar road, guiding you when the map inside your chest feels smudged and unreadable. You may notice this after a divorce, when the life you built brick by brick suddenly collapses into rubble, or when you pack your belongings and move to a city whose streets you don't yet know, or in the raw hush of grief, when someone you loved has slipped beyond sight, leaving your world hollow and echoing. Sometimes the surge comes without catastrophe, perhaps during a spiritual awakening, a quiet unraveling of identity that leaves you staring at pieces you never realized you were holding. These shifts are not punishments, they are initiations. And synchronicity is the universe's way of placing lanterns along the path. When old frameworks fall apart, the psyche becomes porous. Your awareness opens, even if your heart is bruised. Grief, confusion, and uncertainty soften the ego's rigid defenses, leaving space for life to speak more clearly. It's not weakness, it's permeability. And in that permeability, synchronicities flood through like birds escaping a cage that has been unlocked for the first time in years. During these phases, you might bump into someone who speaks the exact truth you were afraid to say aloud. You might overhear a phrase in a crowd that hits with stunning relevance. Books fall from shelves. Numbers repeat. Animals cross your path, more than coincidence would reasonably permit. These signs are not accidental flares from a chaotic universe. They are synchronistic invitations saying, "You are not lost. You are being led." The reason synchronicities amplify during major transitions is simple: you are more awake. The familiar routines that once kept you numb have been broken. The cracks in your certainty let light in. You have been unrooted from autopilot, and suddenly, your senses sharpen. Patterns you would have dismissed 6 months earlier now feel meaningful, resonant, ripe with information. It's not that the universe wasn't communicating before, it's that you weren't listening. Change also brings vulnerability. And vulnerability, contrary to popular belief, is not weakness. It is a heightened sensitivity to truth. When life pushes you toward a threshold, when you're standing with your toes dipping into the unknown, you are more likely to ask deeper questions. You question identity, purpose, belonging. These questions act like magnets, pulling synchronicities out of the fabric of reality and into your awareness. Think of a person walking through the woods at night. Their senses sharpen. Every rustle of leaves, every glimmer of moonlight, every shift in wind feels important. Not because the woods have changed, but because the stakes have. You are no different. When you are on the brink of transformation, your soul pays attention. This period can feel overwhelming. You might feel you're chasing signs, dissecting patterns, trying to decode reality like a puzzle. But the signs are not cryptograms meant to torture your intellect. They are mirrors reflecting your inner evolution. They are whispers that help you adjust your course before misalignment grows teeth. You may notice that during these times, small decisions carry enormous weight. A walk you rarely take could lead to meeting someone pivotal. A spontaneous invitation could open a doorway that eventually shifts your entire trajectory. Synchronicities guide you toward these intersections with uncanny precision, not through force, but through resonance. During transitions, your inner timeline becomes flexible. Futures that were once impossible begin to flicker into possibility. Old timelines collapse like dry leaves, and new ones shimmer just ahead. Synchronicities cluster around these possibilities, nudging you gently toward the choice that aligns with your growth rather than your fear. There's also something deeply compassionate about this surge. When you are unraveling, when the ground beneath you feels unstable, synchronicities arrive like the steadying hand of a parent on a child's back. They don't eliminate the discomfort, but they offer orientation. They say, "Yes, this hurts, but it matters. Keep walking." It's important to remember, the intensity of synchronicity is not a sign the universe has just now taken interest in you. It's a sign that you have entered a phase where your life's narrative is pivoting. Hollywood would call it a plot point. Mystics call it initiation. Psychologists might call it individuation. These are the moments that shape who you become. Often, you will encounter synchronicities that point to themes you've ignored. Maybe you keep seeing symbols of boundaries. Maybe the animals that cross your path represent independence, courage, or rest. Maybe the same song haunts you everywhere you go, a melody about letting go, or choosing yourself, or beginning again. These are not random cultural coincidences. They are reflections of inner conversations you haven't dared to have. As someone who has walked through several dark nights of the soul, I can tell you synchronicities feel louder when you are breaking open, because you are finally soft enough to absorb the message. Pain strips away the ego's armor, leaving you receptive, and receptivity is the nervous system's way of saying, "Pay attention, we are shifting." But with this surge can come confusion. Many people become obsessed, as though every symbol carries cosmic consequence. They lose balance, clinging to feathers and phone numbers like lifeboats. This is understandable, but unnecessary. Synchronicities are meant to guide, not govern. They are gentle suggestions, not commandments. If you feel overwhelmed, ground yourself. Touch something physical. Sit with your breath. Trust that what is meant for you will never require panic to receive. Transitions are also the time when old identities die. You may feel disoriented because the person you were no longer fits into the life you lived. Synchronicities appear to shepherd you toward the version of yourself that is waiting on the horizon. You will find new teachers, new friends, new ideas that feel almost suspiciously well-timed. Synchronicities often appear through other people during these transitions. A casual remark from a coworker becomes a wake-up call. A stranger shares a story that feels like prophecy. Relationships collapse or emerge with suspicious precision. Human beings are the universe's favorite delivery system for messages. Eventually, the storm clears. You adjust to the new terrain. Your nervous system settles, and like waves fading from a shoreline, the synchronicities become less frequent, not because the guidance has ended, but because you have integrated it. When you are aligned, you no longer need flashing signs. You become the sign. Your intuition becomes internalized. Symbolism becomes instinctive. Timing becomes a feeling, not a calendar, and you begin to navigate life with quiet confidence, knowing that the same intelligence that guided you through change continues to hum beneath the surface of every ordinary moment. So when synchronicities erupt like constellations during a life transition, don't fear them. Don't chase them. Don't worship them. Receive them. Let them remind you of something you may have forgotten. You are not lost. You are not wandering blindly. Every ending is a threshold. Every threshold is a beginning. And the universe does not allow you to cross alone. Trust the lanterns. They always appear when the night grows darkest. 7. Inner frequency states. There is a quiet truth most people don't discover until life has exhausted every one of their attempts to force it. You don't chase synchronicity, you become it. For many years, I thought synchronicities were treasure maps placed outside of me. I searched for signs, hunted for symbols, strained for meaning in every passing moment. The harder I looked, the quieter they became. They slipped through my fingers like smoke, leaving me frustrated and convinced that life was withholding something. I didn't understand then that synchronicity is not an event you encounter. It's a state of resonance you enter. Just like instruments tune to one another, consciousness tunes to the field around it. When your inner frequency becomes harmonious, steady, grateful, present life arranges itself around you with surprising coherence. Opportunities appear without strain. People call without prompting. Answers arrive when the question is barely formed. You don't need to run towards synchronicity because your vibration pulls it toward you effortlessly. Inner frequency is the emotional atmosphere you live in. It's not your passing mood. It's the tone your nervous system hums when you're not pretending. Most people live in frequencies built by fear of lack, fear of abandonment, fear of failing the imaginary expectations of others. When fear becomes your tone, synchronicity has trouble reaching you, not because the universe punishes fear, but because fear closes the doors of perception. It narrows your gaze until you see threat, not opportunity. But when you cultivate gratitude, not performative gratitude, but the quiet kind that rises from simply being alive, the vibration shifts, it softens, it warms. Your body relaxes into the present moment, and the present is where all synchronicity lives. The future is imagination. The past is memory. But the present is the interface, where consciousness interacts with unfolding reality. Synchronicity cannot meet you anywhere else. Imagine tuning a radio. If you are even slightly off frequency, the music becomes static, no matter how loudly you turn the dial. The distortion doesn't disappear until the alignment is precise. In the same way, synchronicities are not random transmissions. They are broadcasts from the field of potential, received only when your inner dial lands on presence, openness, and trust. Presence is particularly powerful. When you are present, you are not addicted to distraction. You notice the stranger's comment, the book on the shelf, the pattern on the street sign, the friend who calls at the perfect moment. These threads weave synchronicity into your awareness. When you are lost inside your mind, thinking anxiously about tomorrow, or replaying yesterday's wounds, you walk past these threads without seeing them. The tapestry furls itself quietly and waits. Another frequency that magnetizes synchronicity is authenticity. When you are pretending, performing, or shrinking to fit the expectations of others, your vibration becomes distorted. You broadcast mixed signals. The universe listens to frequency, not language. It responds to what you are, not what you say. When you return to yourself, your real desires, your real boundaries, your real truth, synchronicities surge. It is as though reality breathes out in relief. And then there is the frequency of openness. Most people are afraid to open. They think openness means vulnerability to harm. In truth, openness is simply receptivity saying to the universe, I am willing to perceive beyond my beliefs. Synchronicity flows into open spaces. When the heart is barricaded by suspicion, nothing new can enter. Think about how tightly we often grip life. We try to control outcomes. We cling to relationships. We overthink decisions. This tension is a signal. It tells the field around us that we do not trust. And when trust evaporates, synchronicity retreats. Not to punish, but because tension blocks the doorway through which guidance travels. But when you let go, not with resignation, but with curiosity, your frequency expands. Imagine unclenching your fist after years of gripping. Suddenly, the world can place something new in your palm. Letting go is not loss. It is space. There is also a frequency built from self-worth. Many people yearn for synchronicity, but they do not believe they are worthy of support. They treat life like a courtroom, constantly proving their value. But the universe does not whisper to those who stand on trial inside themselves. Synchronicity becomes abundant when you realize you deserve alignment simply because you exist, not as ambition, but as acceptance. To raise your frequency, you don't need elaborate rituals. You don't need crystals or chants or exotic retreats. Those things can be joyful supplements. But the essence is simple. It is breath. It is slowness. It is noticing. It is gratitude whispered in the quiet corners of your day. Start with your body. When your body is calm, your frequency stabilizes. When your breath deepens, the heart's electromagnetic field expands. Science has already traced this. The heart broadcasts a measurable signature into the environment around you. When you feel love, compassion, or gratitude, this signature becomes coherent, organized, steady, harmonious. Synchronicity gravitates toward coherence. When you feel shame, fear, urgency, your frequency fragments. You become a scattered signal, difficult to receive. You can feel this fragmentation physically. The shoulders tighten, the jaw clenches, the stomach knots. This is the body telling you your frequency is tangled. When people ask how to attract synchronicities, I tell them soften your ribs, open your chest, slow your breath, become a vessel rather than a warrior. When you are soft, you are receptive. And here is something gentle but profound. Joy is a tuning fork. Not the loud, manic joy of distraction, but the quiet joy of existing. When you feel joy for reasons that are not conditional on outcomes, synchronicity begins regardless of what you're doing. Suddenly, you run into friends you needed to see. You discover opportunities you could not have planned. You receive calls that answer unspoken questions. Joy is the vibration of alignment. This is why children attract synchronicity so naturally. They play. They laugh. They don't plan every second of their future. Their hearts are open. Their presence is unfiltered. Life loves to speak to those who haven't blocked their listening. As you increase your inner frequency, you'll notice something else. You begin to experience more flow. Tasks become easier. Timing becomes smoother. You walk into stores at the precise moment. Something is discounted. You arrive at the bus stop right before the bus pulls in. You meet the right mentor the day you were ready to quit. People will say you're lucky, but luck is just alignment wearing a disguise. In time, synchronicities become so natural that you stop bragging about them. You stop chasing them. You begin to anticipate them the way you anticipate a friend showing up at your door, trusting, curious, grateful. They become symphonies of timing rather than exceptions to the rule. But be careful with one thing. Don't grip the desire for synchronicity. Don't become addicted to signs. If you ask the universe for constant reassurance, your frequency turns anxious. Synchronicities slow again. They are not here to replace inner knowing. They are here to confirm it. When your inner frequency becomes confident, synchronicities show up less. Not because they've abandoned you, but because you became the guidance you were seeking. Like learning to ride a bicycle. The hand on the seat fades when you can balance on your own. So focus less on the outer world. Focus on the frequency inside your chest. If your thoughts are frantic, slow them with breath. If your heart is heavy, soften it with gratitude. If your mind is scattered, return to presence. When the inner world harmonizes, the outer world responds like a faithful echo. And over time, you'll discover something beautiful. Synchronicity was never about chasing symbols. It was about becoming someone who lives in tune with life itself. You don't find alignment by hunting signs in the forest of existence. You find it by tending the quiet garden of your frequency and letting the universe find you. 8. The integration between the unconscious and physical reality. There is a hidden layer to human experience that most of us walk beside without ever truly noticing. It is subtle, quiet, and ancient. It doesn't speak in sentences or logic. Instead, it whispers in feelings, symbols, sensations, and timing. This layer is the unconscious mind, the deep ocean beneath the surface of your awareness. While your conscious thoughts skim the waves, the unconscious swims through currents you rarely see. It registers expressions, tones, energy fields, and environmental frequencies long before you can verbalize them. And synchronicity, in many ways, is the bridge between this silent intelligence and the physical world you wake up inside each morning. Science has mapped only fragments of this mystery. We know the conscious mind processes information slowly, sequentially, like a narrow flashlight. But the unconscious processes millions of impressions per second: body language, micro-expressions, subtle cues in a room, emotional resonance, even shifts in the electromagnetic field around another person. You've felt this before, walking into a room and sensing heaviness without a word exchanged, or meeting someone and instantly knowing you can trust them. Your conscious mind may fumble for explanations, but your unconscious has already read the field. Synchronicities often arise from this hidden processing. They are not random gifts tossed from the sky. They are reflections of patterns. Your unconscious has already detected patterns, too subtle for the intellect, yet too important to ignore. When you align with a certain frequency inside yourself, the unconscious begins filtering reality through that resonance. Suddenly, you notice signs, opportunities, symbols that were always around you, but blurred into the background. Synchronicity sharpens the focus. It's similar to learning a new word. Once you know it, you begin seeing it everywhere: in books, conversations, advertisements. Did the words suddenly multiply? Of course not. Your awareness simply expanded to include what was always present. Synchronicity operates the same way, but on a more profound level. It draws your attention toward experiences that support your evolution. The unconscious communicates through intuition, a subtle tug in the chest, a feeling of unease, a warmth of recognition. It's not dramatic. It doesn't shout, but it is accurate. Before you consciously realize a relationship isn't good for you, your unconscious may show you repeating signs: a dream, a symbol, a pattern of numbers, animals appearing in odd places. These are not hallucinations. They are expressions of an ancient partnership between inner knowing and outer events. And here's where the mystery deepens: the boundary between internal and external reality is thinner than we imagine. The unconscious doesn't merely interpret the world, it interacts with it. When you hold a consistent emotional state, your unconscious mind filters perception and influences behavior in ways that create feedback loops in the environment. You choose words differently, move differently, notice differently. Other people feel this shift, often without knowing why. Their responses change, and suddenly, the world appears to meet you halfway. Some call this manifestation, others call it psychology. But beneath those names is a simple truth. What you hold within yourself subtly shapes what you encounter outside of yourself. Consider dreams. They are the theater of the unconscious, the stage on which deeper truths, suppressed emotions, and unrealized potentials play out. When a dream repeats, when imagery returns, night after night, it is not senseless noise. It's guidance. The unconscious uses symbols because symbols bypass rational resistance. They slip past the guards of logic and plant seeds in the garden of intuition. Synchronicity works the same way. It uses external events as symbols, inviting you to notice what the unconscious already understands. The physical world becomes a mirror, reflecting the movement of your inner world. When something repeats an animal, a number, a phrase, consider that repetition, the unconscious knocking on the door of awareness. You may have experienced moments when you knew something before it happened. You thought of a friend seconds before receiving their message. You sensed a shift in someone's tone before they ever spoke of their sadness. This is not magic, it's attunement. Human beings are profoundly relational beings. Our unconscious minds stream data constantly through subtle social signals, electromagnetic fields, even the rhythms of breath. The conscious mind is late to the party. When people say, "I don't know why, but I knew," they are giving language to a truth their unconscious concluded long ago. Synchronicities often appear at this threshold, right when the unconscious begins pressing its truth into conscious awareness. It's like reality, placing bright markers along a path the deeper mind already predicted. There's a softness to this integration. It doesn't demand belief, it simply reveals. When you are too distracted, the unconscious whispers through discomfort, gut tension, headaches, restless sleep. When you ignore these whispers, life escalates to synchronicity, using the external world to highlight the internal pattern. If you continue ignoring, the body becomes louder. This is not punishment, it is compassion. Reality cares enough to repeat the message. The integration between unconscious and physical reality strengthens when the nervous system is calm. Stress shrinks awareness. Anxiety focuses on survival, not symbolism. That's why synchronicities often appear when you are grounded, grateful, or simply present. When the mind quiets, the unconscious can finally speak. Many spiritual traditions teach meditation not for mystical reward, but because silence dissolves the barrier between conscious and unconscious processing. As that barrier thins, synchronicities multiply, not because you're conjuring them, but because you're perceiving more of reality. And make no mistake, reality is layered. Most of what you experience is filtered, edited, curated by the unconscious. When that filter shifts, the world you inhabit changes too. You begin noticing solutions you previously overlooked, teachers who were always beside you, opportunities that hid in plain sight. Synchronicity is not the universe suddenly becoming generous. It is perception widening. This widening can be destabilizing. When the unconscious pushes truth upward, it often disrupts old narratives. You may discover feelings you denied, gifts you ignored, limitations you inherited from others. Synchronicities guide you through this destabilization, placing markers beside the trail of transformation. They are breadcrumbs left by your deeper intelligence. Over time, something beautiful happens. You stop seeing synchronicities as supernatural interventions. Instead, you experience them as natural communication between layers of yourself. The division between inner and outer dissolves. The world feels alive, responsive, conversational. The unconscious and physical reality become collaborators. You begin trusting the pull toward certain books, certain people, certain places. You follow intuition, not with desperation, but with quiet confidence. And when something doesn't align, your unconscious withdraws energy. Calls go unanswered. Meetings cancel. Doors stick. Synchronicity doesn't only say yes, it also says not here. Eventually, you learn to listen without needing proof. You recognize that the unconscious sees around corners the conscious mind cannot. You learn to pause when your body tightens and move when your heart expands. You learn to follow the thread, not force the outcome. As you integrate conscious intention with unconscious processing, the world becomes less frightening. Uncertainty becomes softer. Duped becomes quieter. You stop feeling abandoned by life and start feeling accompanied by something wise, quiet, ancient, and deeply invested in your unfolding. In the end, the integration between unconscious and physical reality teaches the simplest, most profound truth. You are not separate from the intelligence of the world around you. Your deeper mind is already in conversation with existence long before your thoughts catch up. Synchronicities are merely the visible footprints of this invisible dialogue. And when you learn to trust that dialogue, life stops feeling random. It begins to feel guided. 9. Soul memory and the map of evolution. There are patterns in life that follow you quietly. Like distant echoes, you can't quite place. A symbol that appears again and again across decades. A number that greets you in strange corners of your days on clocks, on receipts, on street signs. A feeling that presses gently into your chest every time you cross a familiar threshold. Even if you have never been there before. Most people shrug and say, just coincidence. But if you've lived long enough, if you've walked through darkness and resurfaced with softer eyes, you begin to understand that these repetitions are not random. They are echoes of the soul. Every soul carries memory, not in the way we think of memory photographs, facts, birthdays, but in something older, more cellular. Memory stored in vibration, memory stored in instinct, memory stored in attraction and repulsion. The unconscious remembers what the conscious mind forgets, and synchronicities are one of the ways those memories surface into your waking life, acting like map markers along your personal journey of evolution. When the same theme repeats, whether it's a symbol like a butterfly, a recurring dream of water, a number like or a specific emotional state, your soul is tapping you on the shoulder. It's saying, you've returned to a familiar lesson. Slow down, integrate. Each repetition is not punishment. It is an invitation to stop running in circles and begin walking inward. Think of life as a spiral. You revisit similar experiences not because you failed, but because you've climbed to a higher vantage point. The lesson returns, not to shame you, but to offer you a deeper understanding. What once wounded you now invites compassion. What once frightened you now summons courage. What once confused you now asks for clarity. Synchronicity reminds you that evolution is layered, like peeling back petal after petal on a flower. A soul lesson rarely integrates on the first encounter. We may understand it mentally, but not emotionally. We may accept it spiritually, but not physically. Patterns return until every layer of our being says, I am ready to release this, or I am ready to embody this. Soul memory is why we feel drawn to certain people instantly. You meet someone for the first time, and yet it feels like a reunion. Their presence stirs something ancient inside you. Comfort, curiosity, fear, longing. These are not random neurological glitches. They are resonances between two evolving maps. Sometimes those people stay, sometimes they leave, but their arrival is always significant. The same is true with places. You step onto a piece of land and feel something settle inside your ribs, like remembering a melody you haven't heard since childhood. Your conscious mind may wonder, why here? But your soul whispers, we've been here before. You may find yourself drawn to a certain culture, a certain art form, a certain era. These are breadcrumbs from the soul's archive. Subtle clues, pointing you toward work unfinished or gifts unexplored. Synchronicity acts as the compass. When you ignore these breadcrumbs, the universe doesn't punish you. It simply repeats the lesson. Life is patient, almost unbelievably so. If you refuse one opportunity to grow, another will appear, wearing a different face. If you ignore one person's message, the lesson may arrive through someone else. Patterns repeat until you become conscious. This is why the same type of relationship may show up again and again. The names change, the faces change, but the dynamic remains. Perhaps you fear abandonment, so you attract people who leave, not because you are cursed, but because the pattern must be healed from within. The wound seeks resolution until you recognize your role in the dance. The dance continues. Synchronicity highlights the choreography. Pay attention to what repeats. Repetition is revelation. Numbers, symbols, emotions. They are bookmarks in the soul's curriculum. If jealousy keeps showing up, the lesson may be self-worth. If betrayal repeats, the lesson may be boundaries. If abandonment echoes through your relationships, the lesson may be self-trust. Synchronicity doesn't just point at the problem, it points at the doorway. One of the most profound truths is this: the soul chooses growth over comfort. It would rather bruise you toward expansion than cradle you into stagnation. And so, lessons repeat until the old version of you can no longer fit into the pattern. Growth is the moment you stop blaming the pattern and start reading it. When synchronicities cluster around a theme, you can be certain you are nearing the threshold of integration. It means your unconscious is ready. It means the universe is collaborating. It means something you've carried for a long time is ready to be understood, not intellectually, but embodied. To integrate a lesson, you must face it gently. Integration is not force. It is presence. It is saying, I see you, even when it hurts. The wound calms when witnessed. The pattern softens when accepted. Denial prolongs suffering. Awareness dissolves it. Soul memory also explains your gifts, the talents that seem to come naturally. Maybe you can paint without training, or speak languages without struggle, or comfort others with an intuition that surprises you. These are not coincidences. These are inheritances. They are tools you honed long before you arrived here. Synchronicity nudges you toward using them, not for ego, but for evolution. And what about the dreams that feel more real than waking life? The ones with landscapes you've never seen, yet recognize intimately. Those dreams may be reminders, lessons you are reworking in the unconscious realm. The physical world is only one classroom. Sleep is another. As your consciousness expands, synchronicities become louder at key evolutionary points. Right before a breakthrough, the world becomes symbolic. You see signs that confirm the change already happening inside you. You feel guided. Life becomes interactive. Not because reality changed, but because you did. Your perception widened. Your frequency lifted. And here is the most beautiful part once the lesson integrates. The synchronicities around that theme quiet down. The symbol fades. The number stops appearing. The dream dissolves. Not because the universe abandoned you, but because you graduated. Silence, in this sense, is victory, but new patterns will eventually appear. New themes, new symbols. Evolution does not end. The soul is always carving deeper wells of wisdom. Growth is not a staircase. It is a spiral. You will revisit old rooms with new eyes, discovering facets you missed before. Synchronicity will light the corners. There may be moments when you feel exhausted by recurring lessons. You may ask, why again? But each recurrence invites a higher response. The lesson isn't repeated. You are being refined. Slowly, softly, the soul learns to love without attachment, to give without emptiness, to walk without fear. Eventually, you come to trust the repetitions. You no longer see them as punishments. You see them as coordinates. The soul's compass points toward integration, not perfection. And when synchronicities repeat relentlessly, it means the universe is holding a mirror very close to your face. It's not asking you to run. It's asking you to look at the pattern, look at the wound, look at the belief, not with judgment, but with reverence. And then, gently, choose differently. Over time, you will realize something profound. Synchronicity isn't predicting your future. It's revealing your becoming. The symbols, the numbers, the recurring themes, they are the world's way of saying, you're close. Stay awake. Keep learning. Keep opening. And one day, the pattern that once frightened you will become the doorway you walk through with grace. In that moment, the soul exhales. The map unfolds a little further, and you step into a version of yourself that every lifetime before this one has been pointing toward. When you realize you were being guided, there is something quietly astonishing about this life we are given. So often we imagine ourselves as solitary travelers, moving through years, decisions, heartbreaks, and small triumphs with only our thoughts for company. Yet if you pay close attention, really pay attention, you begin to sense that life has never once left you alone. Behind every coincidence that softened your fear, behind every perfectly timed meeting, behind every message that arrived a moment before you cracked, there is an intelligence at work. An intelligence subtle enough to whisper but strong enough to bend timelines. Synchronicity is not loud. It doesn't crash through your door or shout your name. It moves like wind through tall grass, only visible if your eyes are soft and your breath is calm. When you slow down, you begin to feel its presence weaving between the hours of your days. It's there in the stranger's smile, in the way certain words seem to follow you, in the quiet instinct that nudges you left instead of right. Like silver threads, these moments stitch together experiences you once thought were random, revealing a pattern that could never have been accidental. Most of us try to control life. We tighten our bodies. We push outcomes with urgency. We run after meaning, as if it's something hiding outside of us. And in all that grasping, we miss the gentle choreography unfolding beneath our efforts. Life is not something you need to wrestle into shape. It responds not to pressure, but to presence. When your mind relaxes its grip, synchronicity steps forward. Control is the language of fear. Presence is the language of trust. There is a shift that happens when you begin to trust. You breathe differently. You soften around uncertainty. You stop demanding that life follow your timelines, and instead begin to listen for its rhythm. This doesn't mean you collapse into passivity. It means you learn the dance. In that dance, synchronicity becomes your silent partner. One of the most profound things I learned, after years of trying to force my reality into a shape I thought I wanted, is that the universe is far more intelligent than my fear-based planning. Every time something slipped from my hands, something better waited ahead, something I was not yet matured enough to hold. Every person who left created the vacuum necessary for deeper relationships to bloom. Every delay humbled me into patience. Every disappointment taught me how to differentiate craving from calling. And looking back, I realized the pattern synchronicity was always active. I simply wasn't listening. To hear synchronicity is to live with receptive eyes, the kind that notice the shimmer of meaning beneath ordinary textures. It's not about superstition. It's not about clinging to signs. It's about noticing the way life aligns. When you align with yourself, the quieter you become, the easier it is to hear the truth. Reality responds to your state, not your struggle. If your state is frantic, life feels tangled. If your state is anxious, timing becomes chaotic. But when your state settles into peace, even if nothing has changed externally, doors swing open, solutions appear, people respond differently, opportunities feel less like miracles and more like natural extensions of your inner coherence. We are taught to chase, to hustle, to prove, but the truth is less dramatic. Synchronicity comes when you stop proving your worth to a universe that already values you. You don't earn synchronicity. You remember how to notice it. And noticing requires slowing down. Take a slow breath. And another, imagine your life as a long, winding thread, stretching both backward and forward through time. Every moment of intuition, every repeated symbol, every recurring number is pulling on that thread, asking you to follow, not with frantic urgency, but with quiet curiosity. The more you listen, the more the thread reveals. You don't need to sprint, you only need to feel the tug. Eventually, as you walk this way, synchronicity becomes a compass. When your heart is at peace, you feel pulled toward people who expand you, rather than diminish you. You notice opportunities that align with your growth. Instead of distracting your attention, you begin to trust endings, because you can feel the opening behind them. Something remarkable happens. Then your nervous system stops bracing for impact. You trust the unfolding. You trust delays. You trust silence. Because you know life is organizing itself into the shape you are becoming. Synchronicity is not proof that the universe exists. It is proof that you belong to it. And belonging dissolves fear. When the heart relaxes, you no longer chase, meaning you witness it. You walk slower, and slower still, until you discover that the path has been guiding you all along. Every accident was choreography. Every loss was redirection. Every painful moment was sandpaper, shaping the edges of who you needed to become. You may wonder, but was I ever truly alone? And then you remember the time someone reached out at the exact moment you broke. You remember the book that fell off a shelf just when you needed its wisdom. You remember the dream that soothed you when waking life was unbearable. You remember the stranger who said something that changed your entire trajectory. No, you were never alone. When you stop gripping outcomes and allow life to breathe through you, something ancient awakens. Your decisions become guided, not forced. Your relationships unfold instead of collide. Instead of dragging your future into existence, you allow it to meet you halfway. And in that space, synchronicity becomes not just a phenomenon, but a relationship. A relationship with intelligence, with presence, with timing, with your own soul. The greatest illusion we carry is that we must earn guidance. But guidance is woven into the fabric of existence. You are not here to suffer through randomness. You are here to remember how to see. So, walk slowly, listen deeply, breathe into the mystery, rather than bracing against it. When you feel lost, pause. Look for the silver threads connecting your recent experiences, the names that repeat, the symbols that return, the emotions that echo. These are not accidents. They are coordinates. Follow them gently, and someday, perhaps on a quiet afternoon, when nothing feels extraordinary, you will feel it, that soft hum beneath everything, the hum of being guided. It will settle into your bones, and you'll realize the simplest, most liberating truth. You were never abandoned. You were never wandering without direction. You were always being led through whispers, through timing, through silence, through synchronicity. And in that realization, fear dissolves into trust. Trust dissolves into peace. And peace becomes the state from which your life naturally unfolds, effortless, timed, guided, aligned. You don't need to run. You don't need to prove. You don't need to force. Just breathe. Just notice. Just allow. Life will handle the rest.